This man right here went to visit a Seventh-day Adventist church, and something very interesting happened.
For today's visit, we're going to be going to Waukesha, Wisconsin to attend a Seventh-day Adventist church. One of my big questions after that visit is, why Saturday?
I'm not gonna make too long of an introduction here because this is an 18 minutes long video of him. I want to do the entire thing. I'm gonna let that play out, and then we're gonna come back and have a thought on that. Very interesting, and I think at 7 minutes there are some notes we can take here, and there's some things we can do differently. And also, we have to be fair. This was just one church, right? This is not the entire 7 Adventist movement. There are different ways we do different things in different churches, depending on the culture, communities, and everything else, and the pastor, and so on. So the picture is a lot more complicated than what this one video is out to show, but it still says something. Anyway, link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. Let's check out this video.
Good morning. My name is David. This is week 16 of 52 churches in 52 weeks. Each week we jump into a car and we drive to a different church each week to explore spirituality in a different setting, and also just to kind of see what happens to one's faith by intentionally church hopping each week. If you're new here, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date. And if you'd like to read about the first 52 churches in 52 weeks, that's on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description box below. For today's visit, we're going to be going to Waukesha, Wisconsin to attend a Seventh-day Adventist church. In the first 52 and 52, I write about how I was planning to go to a Seventh-day Adventist church. I looked up the website, got the time, went there on a Sunday morning, and as soon as I got into the parking lot, no one was there. And I didn't learn until, I want to say maybe a year later, where a Seventh-day Adventist church, they have services on Saturday, not on Sundays. So that morning I just went to a different church and completely forgot to go to a different Seventh-day Adventist church. One of my big questions after that visit is, why Saturday? Why are there no services on a Sunday? And also, anytime afterwards where I heard about Seventh-day Adventist churches, it typically wasn't in a good light. So for me today, I want to understand why Saturday, but also, can I remove some of the biases that I've taken away anytime that I've heard Seventh-day Adventist churches labeled, certain terms for a church body that I have no idea about and I haven't done much research into. So for today's church visit, I'm expecting a plain Jane type of worship service. Worship music, sermon, bada bing, bada boom, and done. So I'm not expecting to learn a whole lot to dive deeper into the theology, but I want to be shoulder to shoulder with Christians, brothers, sisters in faith to understand what a Seventh-day Adventist church is like. So going to drive over there. Let's go. So got back from the Seventh-day Adventist church, and I need to preface this video real briefly first. With these videos, I don't want to come across as Mr. Church Critic and try and find faults when it comes to a church that just is not connecting with me. And at the same time, though, I want to be real, I want to be honest, I want to be authentic with these videos at the same time. And I'm coming in with certain biases and certain past experiences that may create some type of negative perception when I first encounter something. So with this particular church visit, my first impressions were not good. And I'll get into that in a minute. But everything was flipped upside down later on, resulting in a really positive experience. First off, when I got there, there was no one greeting me at the door or anyone. And walked inside. Looked like there were two women. I want to say they were probably around retirement age. And they didn't greet me at the door because I think they were more entertained by a little child that had come in. Looked like he was brand new to walking. So they were distracted and they got talking with the parents. When I went through the narthex area, that little child that was walking, he was getting more attention from everybody. And again, I just kind of scooted right by. I think I was supposed to be given a piece of paper as my bulletin, but no one gave me anything. So I got into the worship area, took a seat. With my peripheral vision, I could kind of tell there were some retired women to my side, and they looked very stoic, like they weren't really moving at all. And I just felt, because no one said hi to me, no one welcomed me. I kind of learned how important that is to have someone at least say hi. So you kind of have some kind of personal human contact when you walk in. And when that doesn't happen, man, it just kind of snowballs from there if you're a first-time visitor. It's been a very long time since I wasn't welcomed. So service started, and I would say 3 women and 1 gentleman got up on stage, and they kind of led the worship hymns and procession. I would say probably their average age had to be about 65 years old, and it felt so much like an 80s TV televangelist type of show, like Hour of Power, Crystal Cathedral kind of feel to it. And growing up myself, watching some of those shows on Sunday mornings before church, they were always grouped those with those 1-800 televangelist TV shows where they push, call this 800 number, give us your credit card number, and God will bless you, this prosperity gospel kind of stuff. So I was associating the worship with that type of 80s TV show, and it just left a negative impression in my head. So after the first hymn, a gentleman got up, and kind of like that Hour of Power kind of thing, they had little catchy phrases when it came to tithing. So the gentleman mentioned that offerings and tithing is sermon without words. And sure enough, a bunch of children got out with some collection plates, and they started serving the offering. So here's what the offering cards looked like. And you just put your money in there. They were very detailed when it came to where the tithings were going. But I've never been to a church before where the tithing was done 5 minutes at the start of worship. So after that got done, then a second offering happened. And this was done by children probably aged 4 through 8. They all these little legs just got up front, and they grabbed these neon colored mini shopping baskets. And they all went through the church. I'd say probably about 50 people were in this church. Very diverse, by the way. The diversity was fantastic here. And so when the kids got their dollar bills from everyone in the church, they put all the money in this dollhouse-looking mini church. And again, it was just so strange to me. First off, that was very cute. But at the same time, to have 2 offerings within 10 minutes of the church service, I'd never had seen that before so fast. A kid came up, and he was dressed to the nines. And he got up to lead one of the epistle readings of Mark. And then he participated with his mother, who was playing piano, and he played his violin. And this kid did phenomenal. Like, I could not believe, he had to be about 10 or 11 years old, but absolutely fantastic for what he did. The problem was the violin rendition that he was playing, it was so long, probably about 4 or 5 minutes. So at one point he missed a couple notes, and he had to start over. And again, he did great, but as soon as he was done, everyone applauded him, but he just sulked his head and walked away. He was so disappointed. And I could tell later on, like, he had to be consoled by his mom. And like the empath in me, just like, kid, like the Christian way is not to be perfect. Jesus was perfect. He died at the cross to save us from all our sins. So we didn't have to be perfect. So for him just to see that perfectionist side of him just collapse, oh boy. And so at this point, like, I'm turned off by the 80s vibe. I'm turned off because no one has welcomed me. I don't have any connection with anyone in this church. I'm surrounded by about 50 strangers. And then now you have this kid, this violin maestro, phenomenal, but he missed a couple notes, and now he's just emotionally just needs to get back to his center. And then Jose got up. And as I learned, the pastor for this church, I don't know where he was. He must be on vacation, sabbatical, I don't know. But Jose got up, and I would say he was probably mid-20s, well-dressed. During the sermon, I think he mentioned he was from the Dominican Republic. He was a complete fresh face for everything that had happened so far. And it's fascinating because then he was very relatable. He was likable, charismatic. So his sermon talked about examples of great faith, living faith. And one thing that he mentioned is some of the best examples of that came from unbelievers. So think of the centurion in the New Testament. Think of Saul to Paul. So his sermon focused on Naaman. Who's Naaman? I didn't remember. So he goes into 2 Kings, and he kind of mentions how Naaman was a commander of the Syrian army, and he had gained favor with God. Not an Israelite, a Syrian, the enemy. And as he continued with his sermon, it kind of mentioned how he had a wife, and the wife had a Hebrew slave, a young girl. And the problem with Naaman is that he had leprosy. He was this great warrior, he was this great general, but with leprosy, that was kind of his Achilles heel. And in the story, there's a bunch of political things going on, and eventually he tries to get Elisha to cure his leprosy. Elisha is basically like, nah, I don't want to be there. So he sends off a messenger boy to tell Naaman to go into the ugly, dirty bathwater of the Jordan River and wash himself 7 times or whatever. And Naaman is furious. Like he's, the big macho man. He wants to have Elisha, this amazing prophet, appear to him because he's Mr. Important. But the slave girl kind of mentions and kind of convinces Naaman that, nah, like don't go all crazy on this. Like, believe in God and repent. And Naaman repents. He goes into the Jordan River. Sure enough, he's cured of his leprosy. His skin is made anew. And that's kind of the story. So with Jose, he kind of mentions where it's like, yeah, with God, sometimes the best examples of salvation, of faith, it can start from someone as young as a young child. So I'm just like, Jose, like, where did you come from? Like, this was, like, he was a web designer. He wasn't a pastor. But it was probably one of the best sermons I've heard during my whole 52 churches and 52 weeks so far. So just absolutely phenomenal. As I was leaving, a gentleman walked up to me. He shook my hand, and he thanked me for visiting. And I'm like, I didn't know anyone knew that I was a visitor because no one had said anything to me. So further walking out, I shook hands with Jose. Just told him, man, your sermon was so fresh. Like, I really appreciated it. And I'm just about to walk out, and a lady invited me to join downstairs for a little potluck. In the past, as Mr. Introvert, I never would accept that. But for this current journey, I'm like, you know what? Why not? So walked downstairs and waited for their potluck to start. So eventually, I want to say her name was Grandma Mo. She introduced herself, and she had been talking to another newcomer named Tony. And Tony was also talking with Tony. It's like he almost was kind of like me to a certain extent. Like he was visiting different churches and trying to find his own truth for himself. So even though we had only been talking for 2 minutes, when we joined line, everyone thought that we were together as friends. And it was like, no, we just met each other a few minutes ago too. So got some food, and eventually we both decided to just sit next to Jose and his friend. And we got talking, and just fantastic conversation. Just kind of learn about each other. He also did, like, because I was curious. It's like, okay, like you're a web designer, but you're so gifted with today's sermon. Like, how'd you do that? And he kind of mentioned, it's like, yeah, I don't want to copy anyone. I want it to be fresh. I want it to be me. So one thing I didn't learn is, why is a Seventh-day Adventist church on Saturdays? So as I was walking to my car, I bumped into Tony again. And we got talking, and just due to, like, we got really deep into conversation, and we were probably talking for a good 20 minutes in the parking lot. Eventually, the whole idea about Seventh-day Adventists with the church service on Saturdays got brought up. And he had done some research on this. So the thing that he told me is, in the year 321, the Roman Emperor Constantine, he was, I guess with the Romans at that time, like they worshipped a sun god at the dawn of each Sunday. That was the Roman custom. So they would pray to their sun god Sunday mornings. Here's the thing. When it came to the Sabbath, and I think with a lot of Christians, we always think of the Sabbath on Sunday. But if you think about it, the 7 days of creation, the seventh day of the week is Saturday. So the Sabbath is Saturday. Why did it change to Sunday? So the reason that he researched, and I did a Google search myself, and sure enough, it's there. So I kind of want to investigate it a little bit more. But Constantine kind of jumped on the Christian bandwagon a little bit, but kind of was trying to keep his pagan religion going on with the sun god. And with the Catholic Church, they decided to kind of make it where the Sundays would be the day of church, would be the new type of Sabbath day. And with Seventh-day Adventists, they want to keep with the original of the Sabbath being on Saturday. And it's like, is that true? Like, it just makes my head spin to a certain extent. And he kind of brought up where it's like, yeah, with the Protestant Reformation, like they split from the Catholic Church, but for whatever reason, they kept the Sundays as a Sabbath. I was doing a little bit of research before filming this when it comes to, okay, where in the Bible is it where Jesus talks about the Sabbath being okay to be on a Sunday? Jesus never mentioned it, but there's a couple mentions about the disciples having a worship on a Sunday, and there's a mention from Paul as well. I need to do more research on that, but that just kind of just threw me for what's going on with that. But yeah, that was pretty much my entire experience with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Terrible first impression, completely restored and made fresh as soon as Jose got up and started talking. So I think it kind of shows the importance of having young blood, of having someone new within a church to really kind of revitalize and bring new people in.
First, I want to say his experience at the Adventist Church is a very common one. I've had many experiences like that in many churches. But I will say at the same time, I've also had the exact opposite in places where either very welcoming, at the door you get to be, you are noticed, you are talked to, and at the same time, sometimes the sermon is flat, right? It depends on which Sabbath you go to visit. It depends who the minister is that day. Is it a visiting pastor? Is it the senior pastor of the church? There could be several things here that are left out of discussion, but one thing that is certainly true, Seventh-day Adventist churches must be welcoming. I will 100% agree with that, because as a matter of fact, we had an entire how do I say this? We had to make some changes in our own church, right? A couple years ago, where we decided, you know what, there needs to be some greetings at the door. There needs to be some welcoming things, because we realized people were coming in the Adventist church and they were going and make videos similar to this, condemning the entire body because of some things that's happening in certain local churches. This is something that the church needs to take a look at and take a note and make some changes as well. We actually did some training. I'm going to share a video with you at the end of our local church, and I took a walk with my son behind me this one Sabbath, not telling anybody in the church that I was coming in this way, but it was amazing to see how it all turned out. It was the exact difference. But one thing that is amazing is the fact he admits that the sermon, right, turned everything around. And I think, to me, that's what matters at the end of the day. Yes, we have to think about everything, the greeters, the attitude of the church, the members of the church, and everything else. As a matter of fact, me and my wife, we have this attitude. If you happen to be a new visitor and we haven't seen you, like, you know, if you happen to be a visitor, we've never seen you before, we make it our duty to talk to you, get your number, invite you for dinner, for potluck or something. But we try to make contact with people. Sometimes we caught them, sometimes we don't. It all depends, because sometimes people just, they leave right after church, and by the time we get our stuff together and our kids and everything, it doesn't always happen, but we try to make sure that happens. Especially if I preach that Sabbath, I will, if you happen to be a new visitor and I'm at the door doing the final greetings and everything else, I tend to actually connect with the individual if they're not part of our church. So there are things that we can do better. Definitely, I really appreciate this video. I think I like the fact he is being fair. Yes, the Adventist church is not like everybody else. Most local churches are different. Again, please be mindful. This is just one church. It sounds very conservative. The people there, older, I mean, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not going to go after people's age. It doesn't matter. But the point is just that be aware, this is just one church. This is not the entire church. There are different ways Seventh Adventist churches behave. And there's churches that have been, they welcome you at the door. You have to shake like 3-4 different people's hands, and you have to sign your name in the guest books. And there's a lot that we do. You get a little gift bag. That's been a thing that might not be happening in other churches, but it happened. I've experienced it. So this is yours truly. I was with my son, and I said, I want you to record me. So he's recording me actually on my way to our church, our local church, the Kinhurst Church.
Without explaining how that goes.
So I said, record me. I want to see what the greeting is like, right? That Sabbath morning. And that was literally 2 days ago, by the way. And this was one of those days. So at the door, if you look at the sign here, we have the Kinhurst sign, and there I got handshake by this man. He knows how to sing really well.
That's all right.
And I got a handshake by David also.
You feel like serving today?
And from the door to the foyer, again, we have 5 more people. And again, she's also a greeter. Welcome. So our experience is different. By the way, it was potluck, so I had like some food for the kids that day, and they had like we had like the kids choir and everything else, and it was like one of the special Sabbath. And then I went to the Sabbath school for the children. I was helping with the youth Sabbath school that Sabbath morning. So this is usually what my day looks like in a 7-day Adventist church on Sabbath morning. So yeah. I just want to make that abundantly clear. Anyway, much more could be said. I really appreciate this video. I think the criticism is fair. I wouldn't say I agree with everything, no, but it does show a miniature picture of what's going on. And there are some things that should be happening. The church should be a welcoming place. When other people come to the church, they should feel welcome. They should feel the love of Jesus at the door, and from the door to the pews. They should be directed to which class they should go. We've had that teaching. I don't think it's followed correctly. There's been so many people being changed, and our greeters have changed. This is something that I think we might need to go back and actually readdress once again. But if a person comes to the door, you haven't seen them before, they should definitely sign up a guest book. You should get their names and cards and eventually call these individuals, stay in touch with them and so on, and making sure that you're staying in touch with them. You got to be intentional about that. Many of the folks that I had a chance to study with, they came to visit one time. Just on that first impression, We connected with them, and then before you know it, they got baptized. The Lord is sending people to the church. He's not sending a whole bunch, but the ones that He does send, we need to embrace them as much as possible. They need to feel the door of Jesus. First impression matters, and they're gonna talk about the church on that moment, in that very moment. And unfortunately, there's been cases where people go to the church and don't feel welcome, and they go to other denominations, and they'll go to other churches or other Seventh-day churches, and they feel love and welcome, and they stay there. So look out for that. There's some things to learn here, but I really appreciate this video. It's a fair analysis, and I would say the criticism is also correct, at least for that church, but also be mindful that there's much more to the story, and other churches don't always do that. Anyway, I would like to hear from you. How are things going in your church? When people go and visit your church, how is the environment? What are some things you think could be done differently? Whether you are in a conference church or in a serve supportive churches, I don't necessarily care. How is it? How do you guys run things? Are you satisfied with what's happening there? Have you also visited other churches? What are some perspective you also have concerning that? Anyway, share your thought and perspective with me. I want to hear from you. Link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. Go to the store. Check out our merch. And at the same time, don't forget to like to the new YouTube channel, Contending for the Faith. Okay, Pastor James at 365. You'll soon see a link in the description of this video, also in the title of this video. Thank you for listening. God bless you. Have a good one. Bye.